One thing we've said a lot to our youth kids is in 2020 when we don't know, when we're confused, when we don't even have, if we really believe what God says he is, we can say with faith that he is our way maker. He is our light in the darkness, right? Amen. He is that hope that we can cling on to. Your way makers in the building, sing this out. You are here.
Working in I trust that everybody got lots of food in them. Everybody had a good Thanksgiving. I know it was probably a little weird for everybody. It was a little weird for us. But hey, we're not going to let the devil keep us down, right? Amen? Awesome. So if you want to, go ahead and turn to Hebrews chapter 12, verse 15. That's going to kind of be a verse that we get to here in just a minute. But I want to, as Pastor Rick said, this Family Fist Sunday, every Fifth Sunday, we haven't gotten to do it this year because of all the stuff going on, but finally we got to do it, and so excited. I am the student pastor. I take care of, I always joke and say, as long as you're not in a diaper, I teach you. So from potty trained all the way up to seniors in high school, they usually see me at some point in time, either on Sunday mornings, Wednesday nights, and so it's a lot of fun dealing with the different age groups, and you never know what you're going to get with any of the age groups. So it's a lot of fun. But yes, on Wednesdays, on Sundays, on Fifth Sundays, I get to come up here and preach to the adults, and we bring the kids in so they can kind of see me talking in a normal voice and not my really high-pitched voice that I usually teach to the little kids. And so it's going to be occasionally, if I tell you to be quiet, it's because that's what I have to do on Wednesday nights and on Sunday mornings. So if I tell you to settle down and be quiet a little bit, I'm just playing. I wouldn't do that to you. So we're going to get into the Word. Is that cool with y'all? All right, so today we're going to talk about a topic that can be talked in many different ways here in a church setting. And so we're going to talk about the topic of forgiveness. And everybody likes to hear about forgiveness when they're the ones receiving it, right? When you're the ones that are receiving it from Jesus Christ, and like we just saw in baptism, and you get to give your life over to Christ and say, God, please forgive me of all my sins, and or when we mess up and other people forgive us for it, we like that part of it. But we don't necessarily always like to be the ones that have to do the forgiving, right? So today, that's what we're going to talk about, because we are in the holidays. And family comes around. It's very easy to hold all kinds of bitterness, and that's what we're going to do today. Is we are going to get what I like to call a degree in forgiveness, but we're going to minor in bitterness. So we are going to talk about the main overarching topic will be forgiveness, but we're going to minor in bitterness. And so there's so many things that we could be bitter about right now. Everything going on with health issues, financial issues. Like I said, the holidays are coming, and there may be that crazy uncle or aunt or sister or whatever that you have held bitterness against for years and years. So hopefully we can talk about that a little bit today, and maybe you can kind of get rid of that a little bit. Because here's the thing about forgiveness. Forgiveness is a discipline, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is the discipline of forgiveness, because you have to work at it. It doesn't come easy, right? Forgiveness and forgiving somebody is not easy, and it's kind of like working out. You're supposed to work out, you should walk, you should, do whatever to keep your body healthy and in shape. But as you can tell, I have a gut and I don't have big arms. So I don't have a very good discipline of working out. However, it is something that you should do, right? You should just, keep your body healthy. And it's the same thing with forgiveness. It's something that we have to work at. Some are better at it than others. Some of you may need this discipline and really hear this and work on it. Some of you may go, I think I may have it. But here's the thing, is every day we have the opportunity to forgive. Every day, something can come up that you will have an opportunity to forgive. And so what I want to do is we're going to go into like I said, the minor section of this and talk about bitterness, and then we'll come back to the overarching part of it and forgiveness. So our main verse that we're going to look at is Hebrews 12:15, and it says, "Look after each other so that none of you fails to receive the grace of God." And then it says, "Watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness. Watch out that no poisonous root of what? Bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. All right? So, poisonous root of bitterness. So think about it. I don't know, does anybody garden? I don't know, does anybody like to garden? Awesome, nobody like me. I don't like to garden either. I don't want to get on my hands and knees and dig around, and that's not me. We have a guy that does all of our flowers and gardening here, and he does a very, very good job, but that is not a job that I would want to do. That's why we have him. So anyway, the thing is and that can kind of go along with what we're talking about, is it's like pulling weeds out of a garden, right? Nobody likes to pull weeds out of a garden. That's the worst job in the world to do. But that's what we need to work on, is maybe you've got a poisonous root of bitterness in your life, and you need to pull the weeds out, right? You need to pull the weeds out. You need to get all that bitterness out of there. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So there's two sources of bitterness that can happen in your life. Two sources. The first is a personal offense. The personal offense is intense feelings of emotional hurt because you feel like you have been wronged by somebody. So intense feelings of emotional hurt because you feel like that you have been hurt by somebody. So maybe somebody has said something to you and it really has just messed you up. It's messed with your feelings, and you just can't find a way to forgive that person. It just really, really hurts you. It really brought you down, and it's really just always on your mind. All right? That's the personal offense. Secondary offense. Intense feelings of emotional hurt because somebody close to you has been wrong. So personal offense actually happened to you. Secondary offense, it happened to somebody close to you. And my favorite examples of this is Mama Bear, right? If Mama Bear has one of her cubs get messed with, you're in trouble. I've seen that happen with my mama, and you ain't gonna like it. I can tell you that much. I don't have kids, but I have seen it happen. I've actually done things where the mamas were not happy with me, and so yeah, you don't want to mess with a mama bear. Also, my other favorite thing is dads that have daughters. Whenever the daughter starts dating, what's the first thing they say to the boy? You hurt my daughter, I'm gonna hurt you, right? So, and I've seen that happen, and I've seen the bitterness be held, right? Because there, and then, like I said, I deal with teenagers all the time in the youth, right? And teenage dating is crazy. They get back together like 3 or 4 different times, right? And so, but the dad is like, look, he already hurt you. You cried for 2 days over this boy. You're not going to get with him again. And she's like, but I love him. And so it's crazy, right? So that's our two sources of bitterness: personal offense and secondary offense. So personal offense happens to you. Secondary offense happens to someone you love. All right? So now we're going to go on to stages of bitterness. So these are the stages of bitterness that can happen. The first one is you perceive injustice. So the first thing that happens is you become aware of it. You see that it is there, and you become aware of it, and so you perceive the injustice, all right? So that's the first stage of bitterness. The second stage, it offends you. So you've seen it, and now it hits you, and it offends you, and you're like, hey, that's not right. What you did to me, not right. You can't do that to me. And you the bitterness starts to sink in, which leads to the third stage of bitterness. Emotions arise. Emotions start to arise. So anger, insecurity, resentment, obviously bitterness. And so all these emotions start to arise, and you start to hold all that inside. And so the fourth stage is you desire the other party to make it right. You say, look, you've got to make it right. This is your chance. You need to make this right because you've done something wrong to me, and you've got all that anger, you've got all that insecurity, all that bitterness, and you go, you need to make this right. Okay? So here's what I want to say to this. This bitter root that we need to try and get rid of, this bitter root is going to become contagious. If you hold it in and you hold it in and it really starts to become part of your life, this bitter root is going to be contagious to everybody around you. It's going to start affecting everybody, not just you and not just the person that did you wrong or that you even just thought did you wrong. It's going to affect everybody around you, all your loved ones, all your friends. It's going to affect everybody, okay? So, going on with that point, 4 negative effects bitterness will have on your life. So 4 negative effects that bitterness is going to eventually have on your life. The first is bitterness will start to place a strain on your relationships with others. Bitterness will place a strain on your relationship with others. So when you start to harbor that bitterness in and you start to hold it all in your heart, it's going to cause you to distance yourself from anybody that appears to be like the person that hurt you. So anybody that may start to try to treat you like that, or anybody that looks like them, maybe the whole entire family, like one person mess with you, but then you go, okay, well, they're all attached to them. That whole family is, so I'm just going to shun that whole entire family. And so that is what is going to happen. Bitterness is going to place a strain on your relationship with others. The second negative effect, bitterness will place a strain on your relationship with God. With God, that's the worst thing that can happen. Sometimes when you have bitterness, it goes all the way past people and it goes into your relationship with God. You go all the way past the person and then you start going, God, why did you let that happen? Why me? Why did you let that happen? Why did that person, do such horrible things to me? And you start to take that bitterness and push it to God, and then you get away from God, and that's the last thing you want. So number 3, the third negative effect that bitterness will have in your life, it's going to cause you to live with a victim mentality, get this, instead of a victorious mentality. A victim mentality instead of a victorious mentality. They always, the people that become, and there's things that happen that you can become a victim, that you really literally are a victim. If somebody, hurt you in some kind of way, maybe you were abused or maybe you were really hurt in a really bad way. I mean, that you are a victim. But here's the thing. These people can sometimes always live as a victim. And because of something that happened to them, and it causes that root of bitterness to sink in, and then that just spills on to everybody else, right? And then they find themselves abandoned because everybody is like, okay, yes, what happened to you was not right. It was messed up. They shouldn't have done it. But then if you just keep on and you keep on and you keep on your entire life, then what's going to end up happening is people are going to be like, dude, you need to move on. You need to move on. I know it's hard, and I know what happened to you stinks, and it shouldn't have happened, but you need to move on. I got a tad bit of time. So there's a stupid teenager movie. I'm not even going to tell the name. There's a stupid teenager movie, and I'm probably like the only person in the world that likes it. But it's about these high school kids that are trying to become a big-time rock band. And so they're going to their first gig, and the singer-songwriter is over in the passenger seat, and the drummer is driving. And so what he does is the drummer looks over, and the singer-songwriter's doodling in his journal. And he goes, are you writing a song? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, what's it called? He says, Bitter. And perfect, right? And he says, it's called Bitter. And he goes, well, let me hear some of it. And so he says some of it. But the main line is, I'm so bitter, but I've seen better days. So what they do is they go into the studio, and they're recording this song, and it's really just like sad, depressing, melancholy, The only person that's really playing is the singer-songwriter. He's just kind of plucking on his guitar, and it's just real sad. So he sings the song, records it, and the drummer goes, okay, that was really depressing. That was terrible. We need to figure out something else. Let's pick up the tempo. And he says, let's change the words from I'm so bitter to I'm not bitter. And so he goes 1, 2, 3, and they pick up the tempo and they get going, and the singer-songwriter, his whole attitude changes. And I know this is a goofy movie and a goofy example, but everything changes. And what the deal was, the whole song was about the fact that his mother was really young whenever she had him, and as soon as his father found out that she was pregnant, he ditched. So he's never known his father. So he was bitter at his father. And that was what the whole song was about, was I'm so bitter, but I've seen better days because I'm 17, 18, and I've lived on, and I've continued without you. But he's 17, 18 years that he's held this bitterness in his heart. And then all it took was somebody to go, hey, let's turn the frown upside down. Let's move on, and let's change it from, hey, I'm so bitter to I'm not bitter. And that's the person that we need to be. That's the personality and the attitude that we need to have, is just, hey, I'm not bitter anymore. I need to move on. I need to forgive them, and I need to move on. All right? So, number 4, bitterness will affect your emotional and physical health. So it's going to move on from just what's in your heart, what's in your mind, and it's going to affect your body physically and emotionally. And it can really mess you up if you continue to harness all this. And it's not just with your relationships, it's your actual physical body. It can really start to mess you up. So that's our little minor on bitterness. So I don't know who needed that, if it was somebody in the building, somebody watching online, but there's you a little punch to the gut about harboring bitterness. And so now we're going to go back to forgiveness and talk about how we can maybe possibly get rid of some of that bitterness, okay? So let's talk about what Jesus in the Bible has to say about forgiveness. Luke 17, 3 and 4 says, so watch yourselves. If another believer sins, rebuke that person. Then, if there is repentance, forgive. And then verse 4, this is where it comes in and really hits you in the face. Even if that person wrongs you 7 times a day, and each time turns again and asks forgiveness, you must do what? Forgive. Good. I love the talking to me. So, isn't that crazy though? Over and over. It says, even if the person wrongs you 7 times a day. I didn't do the math, but 7 times 365 is a lot. I know that much. I can't do math off the top of my head, but I know it's a lot. That's a crazy number and a crazy concept to grasp hold of, right? 7 times a day. If somebody messes with you, does something to you 7 times a day, what does Jesus say? You must forgive. Don't harness it. Don't hold it in. Forgive them. Colossians 3:13 says this, make allowance for each other's faults. Forgive anyone who offends you. Remember that the Lord forgave you, so you must do what? Forgive others. All right? So make allowance for one another. What that means is, hey, I'm going to say, look, you had a bad moment. I'm probably going to have a bad moment sometime, right? We are imperfect people. We're going to mess up. Other people are going to mess up. They're going to do something bad to you. Just say, okay, look, I get it. You messed up, and I'm going to forgive you. I'm going to accept you for who you are. You're a mess up. I'm a mess up. Don't say that they're a mess up. That's probably not the best thing in the world to say. But say, hey, I forgive you, all right? And this is my favorite. Matthew 5:23-24 says this. So if you are presenting a sacrifice at the altar in the temple, and you suddenly remember that someone has something against you, leave your sacrifice there at the altar. Go and be reconciled to that person. Then come and offer your sacrifice to God. So what this means in contemporary terms is, have you ever been in a moment of worship here in the church or wherever, maybe in your car or something, and you've been singing, you've been worshiping to God, and you're like, God, you're so good, I love you. But that person really said something stupid to me just a minute ago, and then you start to think about all that. Have you ever done that before? I know I have. And then you go, wait, I need to get my mind right. God, you're so good. Man, they really messed up. Really, like they really messed up. And so what this is saying is, hey, go and forgive them. Forgive them and say, look, you messed up, but I forgive you. I forgive you. And then come back, and then your mind will be clean so you can worship. And so that's what that verse is saying in kind of contemporary terms. So let's end with this. 4 steps that is proof that you've forgiven. So not that you've been forgiven, but that you have done the forgiving. Okay? 4 steps that you have done the forgiving, because you may be going, look, I'm not sure if I have technically really forgiven this person or not. It feels like I might have, but I'm not completely sure. So 4 steps that you've forgiven. The first, you stop replaying the offense in your mind. So just like we just talked about, you're not playing that offense over and over in your mind when you're worshiping or when you're doing whatever. You're not, constantly thinking about it. That bitterness is not there anymore, right? You've stopped replaying it over and over. You're not sitting there going, man, I should have said this. I should have said that. I should have really gone after them. No, you're not replaying that offense over and over in your mind. So step number 2, you are able to finally speak kindly of that person. That takes a minute, doesn't it? You're finally able to release that bitterness, and you're able to finally speak kindly of that person again and go, hey, I love them. They're a great person. They did me wrong. They messed up, but I've forgiven them, and they are a good person. I know it's in there. I know it's somewhere in there. They're a good person. And so that is the second step. You're able to finally speak kindly of the other person. And you can genuinely go, I love them. They're a great person. All right? Step number 3. There is no desire to see them hurt. You don't want to hurt them or have anybody hurt them. You don't want to hire a hitman and go, hey, go break his legs. You don't want to see them hurt. There's no desire there to see them hurt physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, any way at all. It's gone. You don't want to see them hurt anymore. Think about the person that's hurt you the most. Think about it. Think about it for a second. The person that hurts you the most, can you honestly go, I don't want to see them hurt like they hurt me? It's a good one. Can you honestly go, I don't want them to be hurt? If if you've been abused, if you've, been just really, really hurt in your life, you had, parents that weren't there for you, if you had, I don't know what the case may be. Somebody just fired you, I don't know. They hurt you real bad, and you don't want them to be abused. You don't want them to be fired from their job. You don't want them to receive the stuff that you received from them. Then that is an example that you have forgiven them, all right? And the last step, the last piece of proof that you've forgiven, you are able to sincerely pray for them. Sincerely. You are actually meaning it. You're not just praying because you're supposed to pray for them. You sincerely and genuinely mean it with a very, very clean and pure heart. I'm going to take a couple minutes and I'm going to tell one more story. It's about a song. All my stories are about music for some reason. But there is a very famous song out there. It's been around for several years now. And there's a very famous Christian singer named Matthew West. Matthew West wrote this song called Forgiven. Very, very famous song. I encourage you, if you've never heard it, to go look it up. But what he did on this album that this song was on was he said that he knew he needed to write an album, but he didn't have any inspiration. He just, for some reason, he was praying and nothing really sparked. So what he did was he put a tweet out or something. He somehow got in touch with all of his fans. And he said, hey, I want to hear your stories. I want to hear what's going on in your life. So this lady sends him this really long email. And just kind of to make it short, what ends up happening is she had a teenager, and she got a knock on the door one night from a policeman, and the policeman said, drunk driver killed your daughter. And so they, and the person that was the drunk driver, he lived and was perfectly fine, and he was a younger gentleman, and he obviously went to jail, and then they were having to have all the court hearings. And so she saw him a couple different times, and every time she saw him, he was bawling his eyes out. She could tell that he was sincerely hurting. I mean, he just messed up. And so she said it was coming down to the sentencing, and she said she, was constantly praying. She just lost her daughter, obviously, a young teenage daughter. And she said that she was just praying and praying. And she was praying during the court hearing whenever the sentencing was about to happen. But as she was praying, she was looking at this young man the entire time. And she said he had his head down. He was just bawling. And so before it happened, she turned to the judge and she said, may I speak to him? And the judge said, yes, ma'am. So she went over and she looked him in the eyes. She said, young man, lift your head. I want to look you in the eye. And she said, did you do this on purpose? And he said, no, ma'am. He said, I messed up. He said, I just thought I could make it home. I didn't want to get in trouble. I messed up. I did something really stupid. And he said, I could never explain to you how sorry I am. He said, that was the first time I ever drank. He said, I've always been clean until that point. He said, I just was at a party with friends and peer pressure. He said, it just happened. He said, and I would never, ever, ever do anything like that ever again. And he said, but I understand. I deserve what I deserve. I messed up. And she said, let me pray with you. So she prayed with him. And as she was praying, she said she just kept feeling the Lord saying, you need to forgive him. So in her prayer, she forgave him. And she turned to the judge whenever she said amen. She said, I don't want anything done to him. And the judge was like, what? And she said, I don't want anything done to him. He is sincerely sorry. I know he is. And I know because the Lord told me. And I don't want to do anything to him. I've forgiven him. And so I want you to forgive him too. The judge said, okay. So now they have traveled all over the country, telling their story together. They're best friends. They go into schools and talk about drunk driving and all that stuff. And now one of the most popular Christian songs has been written because of that story, because of the forgiveness that was shown. And so it's just super, super neat whenever God really moves. And she knew that these steps and this proof had been done. And that's where she was able to go, okay, I don't want anything to happen to him because I know that something good is going to come out of this. Even though he did something terrible, I don't want to see anything terrible happen to him. So I'm going to end with this line and then we'll pray. You only love God as much as you love your worst enemy. Woo-hoo-hoo. That's a dagger. You only love God as much as you love your worst enemy. Do I need to say it again or did that sink in? So that's what I want you to get from today. look, I know people mess up. I know people hurt you. I know that it's real easy to harness it all in and to harbor that bitterness, and it's really, really hard to forgive people. I know it is. And that's why I wanted to talk about this today. And like I said, I wanted to talk about it because I know that there are people in your family that are going to come around Christmas time, and you've got that bitterness held against them. I know there's people that have that situation. And I know that I probably should have talked about the Christmas story and all that stuff, but I just felt like this needed to be talked about because I know that this situation is going to arise. And like I said earlier, there's going to be a time every single day, an opportunity for you to forgive. Every single day. So let's forgive others because why? Jesus forgives us.